forgets to block anymore. I specifically pointed out John Runyon. I hate him. I want him cut. I want half our line cut.
This might be the most mad I've ever seen.
For real, yeah. I think I want to start talking about who we should get rid of at the deadline.
This is going in the cold open. Cold open.
The cold open. There's a cold open and there's a cold open at the bottom.
The cold open's on an alternate channel.
I was gonna say.
That's like a separate link I'm gonna put in the description.
Yes.
Cold open.
18 plus.
18 plus cold open.
Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Inside Sports Podcast. That's with the DE capitalized. This is episode 9.
Welcome back to Cold Daily.
That's correct. I also am coming back from sickness, guys. I missed the fans out there. I felt really, really bad not seeing them for a week.
They were crying.
But my throat was torn to shreds. It felt like swallowing a hornet. So I decided, hey, let's take the week off.
Does that require a pause or no?
No.
Not at all.
Not
at all, Joe.
I didn't know.
Only because you said it.
I don't know where your mind gets out. Let's get into sports. The women's soccer season has ended, so we will no longer be talking about them. They finished with a loss on last Thursday, to Missouri State. So let's just go ahead and jump right into volleyball. Oh, I'm setting you up, Jay Cruz. Tell me about the season.
It's gone downhill very, very quickly, unfortunately. We've lost 6 games in a row.
Right.
And the prevailing thought in my head is, will we ever stop losing games? And that sounds very like hyperbolic, but it's a concern given where we are in the season and how most of our matches aren't particularly close. Now, thankfully, against Valpo and against UIC this Saturday, we at least won a game. We didn't get swept like we've done, I think, 6 times this season. But at what point do we... I mean, I think I asked the same question last week, but at what point do we just say this team doesn't have it, like last year? Like even last year's team, they finished the season 5 games above 500. Looking at the rest of the schedule, I honestly don't really care who they play. I'm not sure that we can really like win a weekend anymore. And I hate saying that given how we started, how talented this team is, but gee, I don't really know what to say anymore, guys. I'm kind of at a loss for words.
It seems like they've really, really hit a rut. However, Joey, we're looking at the schedule. We're looking at this next week. They play 3-18 Indiana State and 8-15 Evansville. Now, say what you will about how we've been playing previously, but do you think we could hopefully eke out some wins and gain some momentum here?
I think the Indiana State game should be a get-right game, at least to bring some momentum into the next week or so, and then obviously Evansville will be a little bit bigger of a challenge. But it just, I don't know. Jay Cruz, I want to almost bring it back to you. You don't think that this is just like a little phase in this team or like a little slump? Like you're legit almost – would you say you're out on this team?
No, I'm not out on this team. Now, if we lose to Indiana State and Evansville, really, either one of them, then I might be out. Like, I hate to say that because, I've studied this team a lot this year because I've gotten the opportunity to announce the games. But if –
it'd be bad. I mean,
these
really
are teams that I don't want to say it. But
they have losing records. I mean, these are both teams that we should absolutely defeat.
I think the biggest problem I've observed, I was at the game on Friday versus Valpo, is we're getting toward the end of the regular season now. We're about 10 games left, I think, 9-10 games left, something like that. We're still trying to figure out our rotations and what players should be in at certain times, who our middle hitter is yet. We haven't figured that out. At times it's been Maggie Wallenberger. At times it's been Brantley Burdett. At times it's been the 6'3" freshman Vienna Elliott. And we still don't know who that is. And I don't really fault Ed Allen for that much. I mean, he's just trying to do whatever he can to get wins. And when things aren't working in the middle, he goes to someone else. But it just isn't working. And they've cut down on the unforced errors a little bit, but that hasn't translated to wins in a way that I thought it would. And so, again, at this point, I really don't know what the answer is, and I'm hoping that, Ed Allen, he's a fantastic coach. We all know this. This is very well documented at this point. I'm hoping he can find something that just works for this team to get back on a little bit of a winning streak before we get to the conference tournament.
Let's certainly hope they recover. And so they stand at 12-10 right now, 4-7 in the Missouri Valley Conference, hoping to improve upon that. Joey, I'm going to kick it to you for football, where you were doing a little video for the game, which we're happy to see. And, we did end up losing. Wasn't the best game, but we have to give ourselves a little bit of credit here because this is the number 1 team in the country. This is South Dakota State. This puts us at 5-2, 2-2 in the Missouri Valley. We've played a very tough Missouri Valley schedule, and number 12 in the FCS polls. So, Joey, tell me a little bit about what you saw from that game.
Yeah, well, even on the podcast last week, I mentioned that my key to the game would be our D-line, to be able to stop the run and pressure their quarterback. And then they went on to rush for over 4.5 yards per carry against us. So, I feel like that was pretty telling as to how they controlled this game. They had like a 9-minute drive late in the game, and they took the lead by 10 at that point, I think, with their scoring drive.
17-7, yeah.
Yeah, 17-7. So I feel like that was really telling as to how they managed to pull out this one. And I say pull out as if it was close. I think the score doesn't really indicate how much they beat us by, because
they were in control.
They were in control, yeah. We had a very timely interception in the end zone that created our scoring drive to get us our first touchdown in the game. But that was probably the peak of the game, I'd say, because then it's like, okay, we got 10 minutes left of the fourth quarter, but they immediately shut it down with their next drive, like I mentioned, the 9-minute drive. So it was the number one team in the country for a reason. They can just do that whenever they want. So this Western Illinois game next week, get-right game, I expect nothing less other than a dominant win.
You got to hope for that dominant win, but Jay Cruz, we have seen multiple times with this specific SIU team, we play down to our competition. That's certainly an argument that fans have said. Do you expect us to do that, or do you hope that we come out and show the Leathernecks what we're made of?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. What do I expect? Well, again, given the recent history, I kind of expect us to play down. Now, we still probably will get the win.
Right.
But given that's just how it is, that's just how it's gone the last couple of years. We've played on our competition. I think that the crazy part, I gave that stat on last week, how the guy from ESPN did like this 600 team ranking of like every single Division I, Division II, and Division III program, and how South Dakota State was 29th, which is better than 80% of high major FBS teams. So, yeah, they're an incredible team. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily light years better than us. And I didn't come away from this game thinking that.
Right.
But, and again, I'm super impressed by Antonio James and the defense. I mean, it's they're for real. We have easily probably a top 5-10 defense in the FCS. I don't know what the actual stats are, but I was impressed with how we stayed in it. The thing that I was a little concerned about was how it looked like our offense, and particularly our quarterback, was a little intimidated by the opponent. And I don't mean that as if like he didn't want to play or he was scared or anything, but he was taking off to run a lot in the first half of the game rather than staying in the pocket like he normally has done. And like he normally does that. He's normally a fantastic quarterback, very well composed. And maybe it was combination of the offensive line, getting kind of thrown around a little bit at the beginning against South Dakota State. They're good for a reason, but it was just kind of like we played with them, but we never really thought we had a chance to win the game. You know what I mean? So
I think that's a good way of saying.
Yeah, and they didn't punish us in the polls for it either. I actually think we jump up like one or two spots.
We did.
Actually.
We went one. We went up a spot after a loss.
So yeah, I think the goal for the rest of the season now has to be to get a home playoff game, which is very doable. In a couple of weeks when we play South Dakota, that'll be a big test to see if that's even reasonable. But all our goals are still in front of us. I'm still confident this team will make the playoffs. It'll just depend on where we go, who we have to play, that kind of thing.
Right, and like we kind of talked about with what we've seen from this team, especially in the past couple of years, we have to keep this going. We have to keep playing our hardest. We can't dwindle off at the end of every year like it seems like we keep doing. So that's it for a little check-in, which is actually timely because I was sick last week. But we're going to go on to me and Jay Cruz's college football segment. Alrighty, folks. A little bit of a lackluster week, I'd probably say, in college football. I kept on trying to find some real good games, but it was just more of the same. But something that we can most certainly get excited over nonetheless. So let's kick it off. Oklahoma at Kansas. I believe this is where Big Noon kickoff will be. And I think this is a really, really good game. Now, it depends on whether Jalen Daniels will be back, which... Do you have any idea what's been going on with Jalen Daniels?
I have no idea. It's the worst part about college football is that the injury reports, there isn't an injury report. That's the problem.
Right.
It comes like coaches will say stuff in press conferences, and the Jalen Daniels thing. It's like, okay, he's gonna play, but then as soon as the game starts, Jason Bean goes in there. So I have no idea.
Right.
Literally no idea.
And because of that, that's what's frustrating for me. It makes it tough for me to pick this game because honestly, I like Kansas' chances. It's in Kansas, or at Kansas, I should say. In Lawrence. It's in Lawrence, right? That's where KU is?
Yes.
Yeah. So, this one's a tough one for me. Personally, I hate Boomer Sooner, so I'm just going to go ahead and pick the Jayhawks here. I think that they certainly have a shot. And I'm gonna put my hope into the underdogs, and I think that because Oklahoma, I still just don't think that they're that good of a team to go undefeated. I don't think they're there yet. I mean, Venables has certainly changed my opinion of him at least a little bit. Right, that was a very impressive win over Texas, but I'm not really a Sooner believer. Like honestly, if I was making the AP poll, I'd still have Texas ahead of Oklahoma, which obviously I'm biased, but
yeah,
I've seen them look really bad against a good amount of teams this year. They played their best game against Texas. Yeah. Give me your thoughts and maybe throw a stat out for me.
Yeah, I'm one of those people, and there's a lot of us out there who think that Texas is actually better than Oklahoma.
Right.
Just that Oklahoma happened to win the one game on a neutral field. Now with Quinn hurt, that might obviously change things, but
true.
In this game, you know, there's certain guys I refer to them as spread gods, right? Kyle Whittingham. Spread God. Nick Saban's a spread god. Another spread guy is Lance Leipold.
He really has, isn't he? He's
Kansas'
really
head
grown
coach
into being a spread god.
Lance Leipold, he's 16-7 in his career at home. And I believe Oklahoma is a 10-point favorite in this game.
I believe so as well.
Something like that, which seems kind of high based on how they played last week against UCF. But
right?
Given that the fact that the spread is as high as it is, it kind of makes me think that the odds makers are not big on Jason Bean. And he came. You remember that game against TCU last year where Daniels got hurt and Bean came in? He was throwing just rockets all over the place, dropping it in the bucket.
He was one of my favorite backup quarterbacks.
But it seems like when he starts,
there's just
something's missing, right? Like it feels like he has the talent to maybe like transfer and be a good quarterback somewhere else, but I'm not really sure. I would probably still pick Oklahoma to win this game. I think the general public is down on them after UCF last week. You know, I kind of like UCF. I like what they bring. I like John Rice Plumlee, who came back last week. I like Gus Malzahn's offense. And Oklahoma is still, again, they're not national championship material.
I don't think so.
But they've found a way to win games so far this year, and I think they'll win this one. But the stats support Kansas.
I think you brought up a lot of good points there. And unfortunately, the stats are 10, 21, and 1. So it probably proves me wrong. Yeah. But I do think that, I don't know. This is a weird game. It's like 11 o'clock kickoff in Kansas. They'll be hyped for it.
Yep.
It's a whole thing. Let's move on to Oregon at Utah. Utah obviously coming off the big win over USC. I think we both saw that coming. What was with the Caleb Williams play where he just drops the ball? I guess we should talk about this at least a little bit.
Sure.
Caleb Williams, his stock has, not draft stock, but his public opinion stock has dropped after this Utah game.
Yeah.
And I want to know if you're buying into that or you think this is potentially just a little bit of an overreaction.
I do buy into it. And the reason I buy into it is not just because of what's happening on the football field, but it's starting to seem like he is going to be one of those guys that if your NFL franchise drafts him, he might have a lot of baggage that he brings along with him. The whole thing about wanting to own a team or something, or like have a part in it, that's a little concerning.
It's very concerning.
It's very concerning because guys who do that typically are not good for the locker room. They're not good for just keeping the morale up overall. So that's something that kind of worries me.
Well, and we got to factor in he's coached by Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
Let's look at some other Lincoln Riley NFL quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, character issues.
Turned out to be nothing. Yeah.
And turned out to be nothing. And Kyler Murray,
character issues.
So this is why I said before the season. I mean, Jay Cruz can attest to this. I was a big Drake May guy. I was like, Drake May, say what you will. I don't think he's nearly as talented as Caleb was right now. I shouldn't even say that. Like, he's clearly a very good. He's a very, very talented, very, very good quarterback. And it doesn't seem like he comes with all the potential issues that you do sometimes get with Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And the way that he plays against better competition, it's not like Drake is putting up 450 yards against the Notre Dame defense. It's an incredible defense. But it's not like Caleb Williams played his best game.
No. I said last week on this podcast that as a Chicago Bears fan who will probably have at least the number 1 or number 2 pick, I would rather Drake May than Caleb Williams at this point.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And so while we don't want to go against spread God.
No. Kyle Whittingham.
We've also talked multiple times about our conjoined love for Dan Lanning.
Oh, yeah.
And the type of players that he kind of rounds up and gets. So I'm going to go with Oregon in this one. I think Oregon is a top. I'm going to say top 6. I might be right at 6.
That's exactly where I'd put them.
I was going to say, I want to say top 5. I think that they're better than Oklahoma by miles.
Yep.
I think they're better than Ohio State, which I know I'm going to.
That's fine.
Ruffle your feathers there.
I'm fine with you saying that. I'm fine with that.
You know, I think Oregon is a legit team, and this is going to be a tough win that they are going to get against Utah. What do the stats say?
So normally I do go to Kyle Whittingham, who's the spread god. Like there are other spread gods, but he's the spread god.
Some of them are maybe like spread demigods.
Yeah. Like Lance Leipold's a spread demigod for sure. Dan Lanning is 5-1 against the spread as a road favorite since he took over at the beginning of the last season. So it's hard enough to go on the road in college football, but to cover on the road, especially at a place like Utah, is going to be difficult. But I think he gets it done. Again, I think it helps that it's a day game-ish, sort of. Utah's still without Cam Rising. So, and as great as is it Bryce Barnes?
Yeah. Yes, Bryson Barnes.
Bryson Barnes, as great as he played last week against USC, I think he'll be a little shell-shocked this week versus Oregon. They're going to hit him a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
Oregon might win this one by a lot. And last thing I'll throw in there before we move on, I would put money right now if I were to place anything on a Heisman winner, I'd put it on Bo Nix. Because
really?
I think he's going to have more opportunities than anyone as the season goes on to prove that he is that guy. And I think Bo Nix will win the Heisman.
I like that.
Yeah, I do.
I feel like the storyline kind of works because I don't think there's a clear one right now.
Yeah.
I don't know why
he would be the front runner had they beat Washington.
Yeah.
And really the only reason they lost to Washington was because their head coach Dan Lanning made a dumb mistake at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. So something to think about. Just something to think about.
Something to think about. What was Washington and Arizona State? It's a whole other thing. It was a very eventful week.
It was a very eventful week last week.
We're going to move on to one of Cole's favorite teams in the whole country, Duke, who played a very good game against Florida State, happened to get blown out in the second half. Yep. But they showed who they were. I mean, that's good. That's a win for Duke, how their program's been. And then they're at Louisville, who – were they on a bye week? I don't think they played.
I think they were on a bye week, yes.
Yes. So we've had 2 weeks to prepare for this very tough Duke team. I'm gonna have to leave this one up to you, J. Cruz. I want to get your take and some stats before I make my decision on this one.
I used this one last week. I am gonna go back to the well. Mike Elko is 8-3 against the spread in conference games since he took over last season, which is still the best in the ACC, even after losing last week to Florida State. And I do think their defense is gonna keep this one close, pretty much by itself. I think.
Right. It's so legit.
So I would pick Duke to at least keep this one close. I really don't care if Riley Leonard plays anymore. Like, we've asked that question every week because Duke has been in so many good games. I don't really care if Riley Leonard plays anymore. I think Duke is who they are at this point. And even if he does play, I don't think it's going to be much better than their backup. So I think Duke will keep it close.
I'm going to play favorites. I don't care if I go 0 for 3 as of right now. I'm going Duke. I'm just, there's just something – like Louisville, I'm not eating the Louisville pudding. I'm not
either.
Like, I think they're good. I think they're everywhere. They're 20th to 30th best team in the country.
Yeah.
And to me, Duke is 15 to 20th. Like,
I would agree.
I think that if Riley Leonard plays, it's probably a different game. And I think this week Riley Leonard will fully be back, fully be healthy, or at least you expect it to be.
Yeah.
And I hope they get a crucial win at Louisville. And then finally, we have your Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yes, sir.
At Wisconsin. I mean, this game is really kind of a no-brainer. I'm going to go ahead and just make my pick known before you even give me the stats. But I'm going Ohio State in this one. Wisconsin has looked like a dumpster fire. They barely pulled one out against a very bad Illinois team. Shout out to Marcus Daly, my younger brother. Is there anything that you're worried about as a Buckeyes fan about this Wisconsin team?
Absolutely not. No.
Not even one thing. Give me the stat.
If Mordecai was still here, I'd be a little bit more worried. The only thing I guess that worries me is it's at night. They've still got some talent. Still got Braylon Allen there, but I don't really see this game as too much of a threat.
I always like their backup running back.
Ches Malusi,
yes,
who got hurt. Yeah. Ryan Day is 22-14-2 in conference games since he took over against the spread, of course. When he wins big. Mm-hmm. We haven't lost the only road conference game that we've lost, I think is just to Michigan. I mean, the only 2 conference games that Ryan Day has lost is to Michigan. He's beaten everyone else. And we'll talk about Michigan a little bit later, but he's just destroyed the Big Ten. He destroys the Big Ten, and really the only teams that are able to kind of trip him up are, top 1, 2, or 3 teams. He doesn't really struggle with. We haven't had that game like when Urban Meyer was the coach against Iowa in 2017 when we got blown out for some reason. Against Purdue the next year with Rondell Moore, we got blown out. I think the days of that happening are completely over.
Yeah.
And I think Ryan Day's got us in the right spot. So one could say.
Here's what I think. I just don't think the Big Ten's any good.
No, and that's also true.
Like, it's Ohio State, Michigan.
Yeah.
And then, like, Penn State to me, this was the year for them to put a lot of stuff together.
Yeah.
But even them, they're not even good. Like, they're not great.
I was very surprised at how rattled Drew Aller looked.
Right.
Like, I know our defense is really good.
This is number 1 quarterback. This is the number 1 quarterback in the country.
How much better has he been than Sean Clifford this year? Not that much better. Maybe not better at all. Maybe a little bit worse, honestly. I don't know. It's a little disappointing, honestly.
It's just
He's kind of been disappointing.
It's been a nothing. And
now he'll get his chance to prove himself in a couple of weeks when Michigan comes to town. But even then, I'm not sure. I would pick Michigan to win that game right now.
I just don't think the Big Ten's any good, and I hate to take away from your Buckeyes. I know I come across like a Buckeyes hater.
It's all right.
I will say, and we can talk about this during the NFL segment, but I'm coming around on C.J. Stroud.
Oh,
There's been a lot of.
How can you not?
There's been a lot of post-game stuff.
How can you not?
That I'm liking.
How can you not?
So that's basically all I got for the picks. I want to. You said you mentioned something about Michigan, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been paying attention. I'm sure you have. When you had a little time off last week, it was actually on Wednesday last week, right before Joey and I recorded, that this story broke that the University of Michigan is being investigated for cheating or sign stealing. It's not the thing I think people are misconstruing here. It's not sign stealing that they're getting in trouble for. It's sending people to future opponents' games and videoing their signs and then using that in the future. And obviously they've got this guy who used to be an intern. His name's Connor Stallions, and he used to be in like a Marine or in the Navy or something. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, and it was funny on his LinkedIn profile. It said that his strengths were like finding a tactical advantage or like code breaking or stuff like that.
That's awesome.
So I don't fault Michigan for having a guy like that on staff. If you're going to have him on the sideline on game days looking at the other team, and that's his only purpose. The problem for me, and I don't know if you feel the same way, is the fact that he has this like network of people going around the country and spying on other teams. So I guess what was your first reaction when you heard about the story? How has your opinion changed over the last week now that we've had a full week to think on it?
So my first reaction is, okay, here we go. Let's start with this. First reaction is, oh no, Michigan's obviously in trouble.
Yeah.
And, this is like the big year. I can't believe they did this. I received more information. I don't think it's particularly that big of a deal. Yeah. I would be surprised if multiple other top 25 programs were not doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, I would too.
I would too. And the reaction from some of the coaches, including Matt Rule and Deion Sanders, as we both saw, were both very hey man, that's just kind of how this works. And I think that that's kind of the reality of the situation. Anybody who may be speaking out about it is probably somebody, or at least if a coach sees it in the next coming days, they may just be trying to get their leverage, right? Yeah. I mean, Colorado isn't fighting for a playoff bid.
No.
So they're going to be honest. Nebraska isn't fighting for a playoff bid. They'll be honest. I mean, these are things, but if I saw something from Ohio State, I'm not going to lie, I'd be like, okay, Ryan, come on.
For sure.
What are we doing?
For sure.
This does just confirm one thing in my mind, which I already had thought of, but this is Jim Harbaugh's last year at Michigan.
It has to be.
There's no – I mean, he is pulling all the cards. He's getting in trouble from the NCAA. That was before the season. He got a 4-game suspension. He's pulling this stuff out. It just seems like he's being less careful.
Yeah.
And I think that I just don't see – I would give it legitimately a 2% chance that he is back in Michigan next year. And I don't know what that means for their program. Because they've had a very historic run, but we've seen them fall off before.
Yeah.
So What did you? Give me a little bit more of your take. Do you think it's?
I don't
mean,
really.
What would you be your punishment? What do you feel is an accurate punishment?
I really don't know. I mean, it'll all depend on I guess, whatever the NCAA or the Big Ten, whoever's like leading the investigation, whatever they find. And, if they find that everything that's being alleged is 100% true, I mean, you're getting into vacating wins territory, which is a big deal. But it's not like it never happens. It hasn't really happened in a while. But there are teams, like my favorite team, for example, who's gotten wins vacated for a whole lot less than this. Are you like back in 2010 when Terrell Pryor and a bunch of dudes were like selling their merchandise, which by the way would be completely fine today. But we got our whole entire season vacated. It didn't even have to do with recruiting violations. It was just like current players selling their stuff, and we got crushed for that. So I think that would be the only thing I would say is like teams have gotten punished for a lot less.
Right.
Now I'd argue there are some other schools around the country like LSU and Tennessee who are doing even worse things than what Michigan's doing right now in terms from a recruiting standpoint, or Clemson too, like all these money funneling through hospitals and churches. It's the biggest open secret in the world. Like everyone knows this is going on.
Right.
But it seems like the SEC is a lot, or at least the media is a lot more nice to the SEC, of course, when it comes to stuff like this, and Michigan because they're not the SEC, and it's just I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts I have on it. The last thing I'll say is that it did come out today. I saw that the person who was leaking all this information was not a coach. It wasn't the coach that I thought leaked it because of a halftime interview I saw was Greg Schiano.
Yeah.
So obviously something was going on. I thought it would be him, but it did come out today that it was a former Michigan staffer that was leaking this information to the NCAA.
Interesting.
So that's interesting. Maybe apparently the guy just hated Jim Harbaugh. That's what I heard.
That's probably
so. I mean, I don't like Jim Harbaugh either, but if I worked for him and he paid me hundreds of thousands of dollars, I probably wouldn't rat on him.
Airs laundry.
No. But again, I guess the conversation off of this is like as an Ohio State fan or as a fan of a goodish Big Ten team like Penn State or whatever, how does this make you feel? It's like, well, even though these things happened, I don't look at the last couple of years and think like that's the only reason they beat us or whatever. Like, was it maybe part of it? Sure. But you could still watch the film and look at things like, look, we didn't lose because they knew our play. We lost because Aiden Hutchinson bulldozed our left tackle.
Right.
You don't have to sign steal to do that.
That's right.
So I'm not going to say that. I just really hope that since this happened that we actually come out and beat them this year. Because if we lose to them again, now that this is all out there and we're going to go around and change our signs and be really careful about it and we still lose, then that's a big problem. So that's all I would say. I think that game against Penn State in a couple of weeks, Michigan-Penn State, it'll be interesting to see how they play in that one and kind of what the atmosphere is like, and just it'll be interesting to see what happens.
It'll be very, very fun to watch. And with that being said, that wraps it up for our little take on college football as of right now. But now you've got to talk, old Joey B, about a very, very highly anticipated World Series matchup. And I know that you're very excited about the outcome.
I'm very, very excited.
We're in the World Series now.
Oh,
beautiful.
Finally.
Oh, my goodness. This is a beautiful week for the playoffs once again. A lot of momentum shifts in these two league championship series that we just witnessed. I almost have no idea what happened with some of these. I have an idea of what happened in another one, but we're going to dive right into it. I just want to start with the Rangers because Jay Cruz's Rangers are now in the World Series.
Woo!
Congrats. And
So happy.
If I remember correctly, Jay Cruz said that if the Rangers win the World Series, you will buy a Rangers hat.
Yes, and I will wear it on the pod.
You'll wear it on the pod.
As a sign of respect.
I will hold you to that. I'll have to check the dates because I'm not sure if the World Series could end by the time our next pod starts or we filmed, but we'll see.
It could. Friday, Saturday.
When's game one?
They wouldn't play Sunday. It could if somebody sweeps. Yes.
If a sweep happens, but
yes, it's probably.
Which actually,
it might happen.
I don't know.
It may happen.
We'll get into our predictions later, but the Rangers came out of a Game 7 crazy series against the Astros, and 11-3 was that final of the Game 7. But oh my goodness, Adolis Garcia saved the Rangers season.
Oh yeah.
That was like a 3-2 game heading into the 8th. They got a run and then just started piling it on in the ninth. But, oh, my goodness, he's my favorite player right now.
Oh,
Coming from the Cardinals, too, it's just another example of them wasting talent.
Yep.
Him and Rosarina, I know you have been mentioning them the past couple years on your private Snapchat story, which I love seeing the rants all the time.
Thanks for promoting that.
I'm promoting
Not that anyone who's watching can access it, but,
But let's just talk a little bit about earlier in that series. We were talking last week, and I was wondering if the Max Scherzer start was going to cause a momentum shift for the Astros, and it kind of did.
Yeah.
Because Max Scherzer had another bad start. Like
Yep.
I predicted, I mentioned, I should say, could possibly happen. And they took that momentum for the next 2 games. But it didn't seem to matter because it ended up in a Game 7, and that Rangers lineup is just too deep for Astros pitching to handle, and they got through it. So as nail-biting of a series that was, so glad that they ended up defeating the Astros. I think America was on the Rangers side, and still is, I would say. What are your thoughts just on this past crazy series that the Rangers just went through?
I mean, it was a roller coaster of emotions, a roller coaster of momentum, as you mentioned. Weirdly, the most outside of the final game where they just started blowing the doors off the Astros, the moment of the series that I remember being like, oh my gosh, we're actually going to do this, was the game they lost in Game 5 when Adolis Garcia hit a huge 3-run homer. We go up 4-2, and then at the same moment of the series, the same game of the series where I have like the climax of my favorite moment, I'm so excited. The 9th inning, Jose Altuve hits a 3-run homer and gives the Astros a 3-2 lead in the series. At that point, I thought it was over, and I didn't really know what to do with myself. But the only, and I think I told you this, the only like kernel of hope I had was that it might just be one of these series where the road team, because they can get off to that hot start at the beginning of the game, because they bat first, it's just simple as that. It might just be a series where the road team has the momentum, and it ended up being exactly that. The other thing that I mentioned last week and maybe even the week before about the Rangers is that in this Astros series, they are going to need at least one, probably more than one, at least 2 games where they go ballistic with the bats, where they are just firing on all cylinders, hitting homers, balls into the gap. Well, they only did that really one game in this series, which was Game 7 when they needed it to. And so, shout out to the Rangers, man. It's been such a fun ride, back-to-back postseasons where I feel like I have something in it for at least a little while. But now that the Rangers are in the World Series against, and we'll talk about the Diamondbacks, obviously, I've never been more confident in anything that I think they're going to win. Now, with that being said, the Diamondbacks have somehow scratched and clawed their way here, but we'll get to that in a minute. I just think you said America won, right? These Houston Astros being eliminated, it kind of feels like this might be the end of their run. And I don't know if you saw, but right after the game ended, Dusty Baker retired.
I did.
And he basically said he wasn't coming back, which probably means retirement. I mean, the dude's like 74. Great manager. He was the manager of the Cubs in 03 when that whole Bartman thing happened. He's been through a lot. He finally got himself a World Series last year with the Astros. So I guess I'm sad for him, but I'm not sad for Astros fans. I'm not sad for Jose Altuve or any of those players that have been involved the last few years. Again, we've held the belief on this podcast that they're somehow still cheating. The guy that I think encapsulates that more than anyone, even more than Altuve right now, Yordan Alvarez is an absolute monster.
Yes.
The way he's able to hit balls that are like 5 or 6 inches out of the zone, like 100+ miles per hour off the bat, is ridiculous. And he was doing that all series. It's not like he stopped doing that and that's why they lost, but the Rangers pitching staff was able to keep the rest of that lineup down. And that was ultimately why they ended up winning the series, because in that last game, the Astros just couldn't keep up. And even though the Rangers bullpen has struggled at times, particularly with walks, it didn't really matter because their offense was just so good, so on point, especially with Adolis Garcia. So
Yordan is a homegrown talent for them too, right?
Yep.
So that's just another telling at how good their development is.
Yeah.
You know, they can just develop these guys at will, it seems like, in terms of the bats. So we haven't talked about the Diamondbacks yet. I think at this point the only thing keeping the Rangers from a World Series title is if their bullpen, just a complete collapse from their bullpen in each of these games. I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen at least at one time in this World Series, because we've seen it so many times in the playoffs already, and just this year, they keep relying on Aroldis Chapman, and like I mentioned, it seems like one run comes out of a appearance by him every single time he gets onto the mound. But I think the rest of their lineup is good enough to get over those woes, and they're deep enough and clutch enough to be able to get by, even if they do get behind early in one of these games. So
I agree.
I think this will be somewhat short series, World Series. Interesting.
Yeah.
But not surprising to me.
No, probably not.
Probably not.
No.
Anyways, the D-backs. Now, I'm going to be totally honest here, totally transparent. I really have not followed the D-backs very much this season. I could not tell you a strength that the D-backs have besides their starting pitching. Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen are the two stars that I know of that stick out to me. But what in the world happened with them for that series to just shift momentum? The one thing I know is that their social media team put out literally on like a sheet of paper, "Snakes Alive," and printed it on all the seats in their stadium when they hosted some of the games. And from that point on, they had the momentum in this series. And now it ended up going to 7 games, but I mean, they took enough momentum that they needed to carry forward into a Game 7. So, I mean, how in the world are the D-backs here, Jordan?
Again, I have no idea. I think every single game, it was a combination. It was something different every single game. In Game 4, they were down 2-1, and the reason they won was because they took advantage of the one weakness in the Phillies bullpen, which their former Cub, he had a great first half of 2021, Craig Kimbrell. He just doesn't have it anymore. They took advantage of him, and the offense came alive in the late stages of that game. Again, their starting pitching wasn't great that game. Their bullpen was good, not great that game. And the rest of the series, I wouldn't say their offense was fantastic, but they did enough. And their elite starting pitching and their elite bullpen, which last night's game, when Kevin, I believe it was Kevin Ginkel came in, oh my gosh, he just shut them down. He shut the Phillies down in a way that nobody has been able to in the last couple of years of the playoffs. It was truly a masterclass in going against a team full of power hitters. I think that's the thing we kind of forget about the Phillies is like every single player in their lineup pretty much is a high strikeout, power hitting centric guy. Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos. I mean, when Rhys Hoskins was healthy, that's how he was. Trey Turner. I mean, you can go down the list. JT Realmuto even too. And the Diamondbacks took advantage of that. Again, in a way that the Atlanta Braves haven't been able to do. The Padres weren't able to do it last year. Only the Astros, for at least a little bit, were able to calm down the Phillies in the World Series last year. And so you have to just tip your cap. You have to just tip your cap because, like you said, there's nothing about the D-backs that besides, I mean, we thought, Zach Gallen's obviously a fantastic pitcher. I believe he started the All-Star game. But he hasn't been the reason they've been winning games.
He's one guy.
Yes. They have just done an excellent job of taking advantage of opportunities. And that was one thing we talked about our Cubs all season. It was like what's going to keep them from the playoffs is not taking advantage of the easy plays that are there. And why teams like the Marlins, Brewers, Diamondbacks, who were all like 100-plus runs below us in run differential, beat us because they use great base running. By the way, Diamondbacks, I think they were like second in the MLB in steals this year. So they use great base running, great fielding, and timely hitting. Not even like powerful or like slugging type hitting, but they use that to win games. And in the postseason, against a team like the Phillies that strikes out a lot, that's all they needed.
But I just want to bring up something too. Is there a real difference? We're not players in the MLB, but
really,
is there a real difference between the attitude that a hitter brings to the plate whenever there's runners on base, runners in scoring position, or even per se bases loaded? Is there a real difference that these hitters bring to? I'm going to rephrase that. Is there a real difference in attitude that these hitters bring to the plate, whether there's no runners in scoring position, no players on base, if it's a tie game, if it's a one-run game, if they're down by 10? Is there? I don't know. You mentioned timely hitting. Is that just something that we like to make up and say as a way to explain how teams won? There's no real way to say that they did this better in more situations. Does that make any sense?
To answer your question, there is absolutely an attitude change for certain players. The Phillies, like I've mentioned, they're a home run hitting lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just watching the games, as this series gone on, I watched more and more of the Diamondbacks Phillies series, and you can tell the approach of almost every player in the Phillies lineup is bomb. And I brought up the study last week that says that teams that are normally home run centric continue that in the playoffs, right? Even if they don't hit it at as good of a rate, they still continue to hit homers, and you can tell that that's their goal. With the Diamondbacks, you could tell they were just playing small ball baseball. Hey, we're going to steal a ton of bases. Even their slower players like Christian Walker, their first baseman, he was stealing bags last night. You had guys that were just focused on doing one job and doing it well. Corbin Carroll, they're one of the best rookie phenoms in the league this year. He came up with a clutch sac fly last night, and he wasn't really trying to do too much with it. He was just trying to get it in the air to the outfield, and he knew that the guy from third, who was also a great base runner, was going to score if he did that. And so the Diamondbacks, I think, have just done an excellent job at simplifying the game. And you also have to look at their bullpen management as well. They rode the hot hand, which some teams don't do that. Some teams will just okay, well, this guy's a lefty, so we have to put a lefty in. Okay, this guy's a righty, so we have to put this lefty who's a reverse split guy. No, the Diamondbacks simplified the game, and that's why they won. That's really why they won. They simplified it, and I think if I was a fan of a team, that's the kind of team I would want. A team that just doesn't do too many surprises. They just stick to their guns.
It's hilarious how you mentioned that study of teams that hit more home runs seem to go farther in the playoffs, farther in the season, and the Diamondbacks completely broke that tradition or study because they are, from the season, they were number 22 in home runs hit, and that's tied for 22, so they're actually pretty close to 23.
Where do the Phillies rank on that? I guess I said they're a home run team. I assume they are.
The Phillies are number 8.
So I mean the top 10.
Yeah, they're top 10 wise.
Who's number 1? Just out of curiosity.
Well, the Atlanta Braves, of course.
Of course.
But and if you cared, the Chicago Cubs were number 15 on that list. So,
right, of course,
right,
they were
right
in the middle. Yeah.
But I just thought the D-backs in the World Series just almost doesn't make sense. And I want to bring up as another topic here, and I don't have it in the notes, but the thing we talked about last week, how the playoff format and everything, I was at least talking to some friends this morning about it, and they're more on the side now, even after the D-backs win over the Phillies, that the season needs to just be shortened and less playoff teams need to be in the MLB. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Actually, I don't agree with that because your argument last week convinced me pretty good. I kind of like the format.
Which ones?
About how the format is fine in terms of the amount of games that they're playing in 3-game wildcard series, 5-game series, 7-game series.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think I wouldn't mind 5-game series at least in the wild card.
Sure.
I don't know. I guess I just want to bring up this discussion again. Would it be better to shorten the season to 120 games and make the playoffs a bit longer by...
The problem is, here's what I think. I've thought a little bit more about what you proposed last week and adding a ton of games in the playoffs, right? When you do that, you de-incentivize the regular season, in my opinion. You de-incentivize trying to get the number 1 or number 2 seeds because you make it so when you don't want to play in the wild card round because you could have 2 bad days and you're done, right?
Exactly.
But if you make there an incentive to get that bye or get the 3 or 4 seed where you have 3 home games potentially in the wild card. Like, you keep teams in it in the regular season. Because there have been other sports, the NBA in particular, is really bad about teams getting to a point in the year where they feel like they've won enough games and they just coast the rest of the year, and they don't really care what playoff seed they get because they know that once they start trying then they're going to get to where they want to go. Like LeBron's teams have done that a lot. The Miami Heat did that last year where they started off pretty well and they just kind of flattened out, got in as the 8th seed, beat the Bulls in the playoff game, and then off they went. So I don't want that to happen to the Major League Baseball. And I think the place it's in right now is really, really good, where you have the teams that are just far and away the best, and they get the buys, and they get a 5-game series at home. I don't think you should reward – I don't think a team like the Diamondbacks, who, again, obviously, in hindsight, of course they deserve to be in the playoffs, but you shouldn't reward a team like them who was only 6 games above 500 by giving them a chance to, like, have a couple home games against a team that won their division like the Brewers. And again, we all thought the Brewers were frauds, but the Brewers did win 93 games.
They did,
and they won their division, so they deserve those home games in the wild card. So that's all it is for me. I just don't want the regular season to be de-incentivized to where teams like the Astros and the Dodgers and the Braves are just kind of coasting as the season goes along, just barely making the playoffs, because then the same thing's going to keep happening. Then you're going to keep getting the 6 seeds and 5 seeds winning. In a weird way, I think the current system should allow for higher seeds to win because you're getting those extra rest days. And, obviously there's that rest versus rust debate, but Spencer Strider, the pitcher for the Braves, came out and said, like, if you have 5 off days and you can't fix your issues or whatever, then that's on you. And so I that's what I go back to whenever I hear things like that, and listening to what he said. And also I mentioned last week how Bruce Bochy was the Rangers manager, was really mad that they lost the division on the last day of the season because he was wanting to go home and have a bye and rest up and just wait for whoever they were going to play. So I don't know. It's all on perspective. If your favorite team is the 1 or 2 seed that got knocked out, you probably think the format sucks. But if your favorite team is the 5 or 6 seed,
of course,
you're gonna love it. So it's just a person by person thing, in my opinion.
Right. Like you mentioned, fans of teams that obviously got eliminated early because they couldn't manage a couple wins against one of the worser teams in the playoffs are definitely going to be more mad about this topic.
For sure.
I don't know anymore how I feel. Like, I've just heard so many different opinions on this issue that I don't even know if it is a real issue. I think it's just been created because people are really PO'd about their team losing in the playoffs. So it's just an interesting thing that's going on with the MLB right now, and I think it's just smoke. I don't think anything's really going to be done about it. It's just people talking.
Yep.
So, and I think that's all it's going to be.
Yep.
So, last thing I want to leave off on, predictions. In how many games will the Rangers win this World Series by?
1 or 2. I think the Diamondbacks will get 1.
Whoa.
At least 1.
So you think the Rangers win in 5?
Or 6.
Or 5 or 6?
Yes. I don't think this will go to a Game 7. I think Diamondbacks are a cute story. But their offensive limitations against the Rangers team that they thrive on getting you to have, like, weak contact. They don't try to strike you out. Right? That's why if the Rangers were facing a team like the Phillies, that's why I was really worried. If the Phillies played the Rangers, the Phillies were going to win it all. But now that they're facing the Diamondbacks, I think they pitch right into what the Diamondbacks don't want to do. And I think that'll end up being the difference in the series. I mentioned earlier we haven't seen the greatest performances from guys like Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly at times. And I still think the Diamondbacks bullpen is really, really good. I still think they will probably win at least a game or 2 for them by themselves. But with this game starting with this series starting in Texas, I also think that's a big deal. The Rangers have been on the road all playoffs, and them coming home is a huge deal. Diamondbacks, when this series starts, by the time we get to Game 3, they will have played 4 straight road games. That's not easy to do.
And most of their games in the playoffs this year have been on the road, of course.
Exactly. And so I think the Rangers are going to get out to a pretty sizable lead early on, maybe 2-0, maybe 3-1. But I do think they're going to win. I really do think the Rangers are going to win.
I'm going to be bold and just say 5. I don't think this goes to 6 games. I think the D-backs rotation is probably pretty gassed right now at this point. They're working those guys real hard.
And the Rangers did get an extra day.
Yeah, exactly. So, and like you mentioned, it's in Texas to start game 1 and 2. 1 and 2.
Yep, 1 and 2.
So,
and are they doing the thing where it's 3 straight games at the other team? Because they did that in the championship series. I don't know if they were changing it for the World Series, maybe.
Well, if they're doing it for the championship series, it must be for the World Series.
You would think so, but I don't know why.
I thought I liked the format.
Like that.
This is another thing. I liked the format how they used to do it a couple years ago, where it was 2 games for the team with the better record, then 2 games for the team with the worse record, and then back and forth from that point on.
So they are going to do 3 straight in Arizona. So if Arizona does take 1 game in Texas, they are set up in a pretty good spot.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'm not saying the Diamondbacks have no chance, but just based on what I've seen, I think the Rangers have already beaten the best team in the playoffs that they would have faced, other than the Phillies.
I wonder if they've played each other this year.
They did, and I think the Diamondbacks swept them.
Oh.
I believe they did, but that was when the Rangers were kind of in a funk at that point.
Probably early on in the year.
It was. I think we had started the pod. I think we talked about it on the pod.
Okay. Yeah.
Where the Rangers went on the road in Arizona and the Diamondbacks did sweep them. So it's not impossible. Again, I'm not saying the Diamondbacks have no chance, and maybe they'll make me look stupid. And if they do, good for them. I don't have any sort of hatred for the Diamondbacks. I don't think anyone does.
Neither do I. Does any?
No.
Maybe Dodger fans.
Yeah. What's the reason? I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's kind of fun. The snakes alive thing.
Yeah, they're a very public darling type of team.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
and everybody loves an underdog, and
for sure.
And this series they'll be the underdog. So
yep.
Just another small thing I want to bring up. This is why you pay your players the price that they are asking for, because then you get these massive super teams like the Rangers now, who I know when we started the pod it was not looking good for them, but they pulled out a World Series appearance, and I think they're going to win the World Series. 5 games for me. Yeah. 5/6.
5-6, and one last thing I'll add: if Scherzer comes in and has a good performance, I think it's a lock. I think he's the key to the series. No matter, because he'll probably pitch game 2-ish.
Yeah.
2 or 3.
2.
I don't think he'll start. He definitely won't start the series because he pitched game 7. It'll probably be Eovaldi to start, I would assume. Then maybe Scherzer, then Montgomery. Scherzer will be the X factor. Absolutely, because you know what you're going to get from Eovaldi and Montgomery. Really good performances.
I would agree.
So it'll be up to Max Scherzer.
And on the opposite side, I think it'll be up to Brandon Vogt.
Yes.
I know I got that wrong last time.
It doesn't look like
it never phases me whenever I see that, but he's probably he'll be a big role in this, because I know he's going to have to get a starting job at some point in this series, and I mean he's not Zach Gallen or Merrill Kelly, so if he comes out with an egg on the board in terms of runs allowed, 5 innings pitched, I mean they're probably in a good position to win whatever game.
Absolutely.
So, and knowing the Rangers bullpen issues, probably a fair shot if they get a good amount of innings by their starters. So, but I just think in general their starters are just too gassed for this. So,
agreed.
Rangers all the way on the Inside Sports podcast.
Yes,
we love it. We love it, and I hope to see Jordan Cruz in a Rangers hat here coming up soon.
Yeah, it won't be next week, but potentially the week after.
Yeah.
Or definitely the week after. Yeah.
Definitely the week after.
Yeah, at least the week after.
Yeah.
So, let's go.
Well, that's it for the MLB this week. Next week might be our last time talking about it. We'll see. Who knows?
I hope that it is in favor of the Rangers.
Me too. I hope that it is. We're going to get back to you with our NFL picks for the week.
Alrighty, folks, and now we are all back to talk about the NFL. NFL's on what week? 8.
Yeah.
Week 8.
Gone by fast.
Sure has. And so Jay Cruz went.
Yes.
Has your name down here as Jordan? I don't know who that is. Okay. Jay Cruz went 3-0. He's been on fire. He's been on one.
Oh.
He's actually now passed me. It was all because that stupid Lions game. That stupid Lions game. I don't even want to. I don't even want to do the state of the team.
We'll talk about that in a second.
I went 1-2. Stupid Lions game, and then Joey went 0-3. Congrats to Joey
I am
Bernard.
no longer even 500.
Who was that? Can you believe this? We had this guy covering the NFL last year by himself. Rough. Anyways, I mean, Jay Cruz, you lead us on states of the team.
Yeah, I'm doing so well. I've won 11 out of my last 12. I don't even need my notes. There's nothing in front of me. My computer died, but that's okay. Everything I need is right on the board over there. I'm 15-6, 71%. That's ridiculous. Goldaily 14-7. I gotta give him credit. He hasn't had like an 0-3, like an awful week yet, right?
Yeah, no.
No, like you've stayed consistent, Joey.
Very
though.
consistent.
It's
Joey's had a couple.
I feel like you have to try to be under 500, just picking winners of NFL games.
Wow.
I really
Sorry,
wish
I don't mean to
picked the
insult him,
Eagles.
but it's just the truth. I mean, that's just kind of the name
I've
of the
been
game
awful.
here.
I'm the total opposite of Jay Cruz right now.
Yes. So normally we do state of the team, right? Normally we start with the winners and then we go to the losers, and then if someone's in the log, we have them do state of the team when the game comes up. Well, for some reason, I was all prepared to start off with my Bears because they're the only team that won up here last week. But Cole felt it was necessary to put the Bears-Chargers game in the slate this week, so I guess I'll wait to do that. So then we go to the losers up here. And since they both lost, we have to go with the team that I guess was the closest loser that could have almost won, and that's the Green Bay Packers. So, Joey, go ahead. Give us the state of the team for the Green Bay Packers.
Well, I think at this point, I just have to sit and realize, man, we're going to be lucky to get about 6 wins this year. I'm thinking
on.
6 wins.
You'll get 6.
How the mighty
6
have
wins.
fallen.
If we can't
To lose to the Broncos was pretty bad.
if we can't put up more than 17 points on the Denver Broncos, who have the worst defense in the league this year, is
up
that a
there.
hot take? It's up there for one of the worst.
It's gotten better, though.
Off a bye, too.
It's gotten better.
That's miserable. That's pathetic.
That's pretty bad.
They make easy runs seem so hard, and I don't know why. And half our line just forgets to block anymore. I specifically pointed out John Runyon. I hate him. I want him cut. I want half our line
This
cut.
might be the most mad I've ever seen.
Yeah, for real, yeah.
I think I want to start talking about who we should get rid of at the deadline, because I think at this point some of these guys we could probably get a good haul for. Specifically, I like Elton Jenkins because he's had a very, very bad stretch of games, and I don't see it turning around. And his stock is still high. I think teams would give up a little bit for him because he's had a lot of good years for us. So other players, him amongst other players on the defense, I think we could start talking about that. This is the worst time to be a Packer fan. Sell your stock right now. Don't become a fan of the Packers. If I could smack my 10-year-old self, I would right now.
Oh my.
Have you been looking at
He's been successful for 12 years.
I mean, that is the
Yeah,
truth.
I
I haven't really had to sit and realize, man, my team is just not going to go anywhere. There's no hope in any playoffs before. So
Yeah.
Right.
See, this feeling you feel right now is the feeling I felt for the last also
No,
12
I get
years
it.
or 10 years or something like
and
that.
it sucks. It really does.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys get out. Have you started looking at 2024 mock drafts for where QBs are going to go and
I've
stuff
heard
like that?
I've heard a lot of good stuff about Drake May.
Yeah. We're both huge fans of Drake May. We were just talking about that in the college football segment. So.
I don't know. Let's move on.
You have to
please.
really
I don't
suck
want
to
talk
get Drake
about-
May.
Oh, yeah, you
have
do.
to
I don't
be
want
terrible.
to talk about this anymore.
Bo
Okay,
Nix.
move on.
Bo Nix kind of seems like
Bo
a Packer.
Nix? Oh, man. He does seem like a Packer.
He just seems like a Packer.
He does. That's a
Right.
great point.
Right? Slinger.
So moving on.
Slinging
As much as I
quarterback.
love seeing Joey miserable about the Packers, we do have to talk about a team that lost in maybe more embarrassing fashion than the Packers last week, and that's the Detroit Lions, who I'm the only person on the pod who said it, that the Ravens might be able to take advantage of them through the air. It was a weird game where Lamar actually was looking downfield and made some pretty good throws to Mark Andrews, but well, how was it from your perspective? I feel like this isn't a game where you're out on the Lions because
No,
of this game.
not
This
at all.
is probably a game that they were probably going to lose.
The Ravens will they usually get a good team like this once a year. They'll just be like, oh, Ravens could win a Super Bowl. That's how good they. If you just watch them for 1 week, they're like, oh, then they could win a Super Bowl, but obviously not. And the Ravens are a well-coached team. They got a good quarterback. They've got good players all around the board. I mean, I'm not out. It wasn't my favorite Sunday of watching football.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna come out here and say all that, but I think we'll bounce back, and I think that we've got Monday night against the Raiders, and I expect nothing but a win there. So, not gonna lose any confidence.
Yeah, if the Raiders have been a struggle for certain teams in the division this year, like the Green Bay Packers, for example. So, we'll see what happens. But
I guess we will.
We'll see what happens. Let's get to the games. 3 pretty good games, except for the last one I don't really understand. Browns at Seahawks. The Cleveland Browns have won 2 crazy games last couple of weeks. A couple weeks ago against the Niners, and then last week against the Colts, where it just that Browns-Colts game was maybe the craziest game we're going to see in all of the NFL this season. Seahawks, despite Geno Smith trying to lose games, did defeat the Cardinals last week. Let's start with Cole. Browns or Seahawks, this game in Seattle?
It was a really tough one for me because I weirdly like the Seahawks now that Russ is gone. Like I like him. I kind of root for him. I like Geno. Not that he's been playing to the level he was last year, this year, but I feel like Seattle, there's a couple places where home field advantage matters. In this modern era, for whatever reason, just home field advantage isn't really all that much of a thing, especially with 2 teams in LA like Rams, the Chargers. But you know who really cares? Is Seattle.
Yeah.
I mean, they care a lot. And so I feel like they're going to show up. I feel like the Seahawks will play better since they're at home. And the Browns will have a little bit of fall from grace from a sneaky team like the Seahawks. I'm going to go with the upset here.
Interesting.
Wait. Who upset?
Wait, Seahawks are the upset? They're our favorite of this game.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
They're favored by 3.5.
Oh, well, I guess I don't
Which
know.
did kind of shock me.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
To me, I guess, sorry, folks at home, it's not an upset. But, I don't know. I feel like it kind of is. The Browns have been really good.
I feel like if you were to poll 50 or 100 NFL fans, I'd say 60 to 70 of them would probably think the Browns are better.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So yeah,
I guess per sports book,
Yeah.
not an upset, but
I mean, it's probably pretty close because isn't the general rule 3 points to the home team for sports
something
books?
like that.
So, I mean, if it's only a 3-point favorite, probably pretty close anyways.
Yeah.
But
If this were a neutral side, I'd probably pick the Browns to win. But I'm actually going to join Cole in this and go with the Seahawks. Joey, who is dressed like a Cleveland Browns player.
I am picking the Browns.
There you go.
I think I just believe in the Browns defense. Geno Smith is still much better than he had been in years past, but I don't think he's quite to the level where he was last year. And I don't know if I liked your point about it. Obviously home games are easier for teams, but I don't think we should talk about them being one of the best home field advantages in the NFL anymore. Obviously, years past when they had the Legion of Boom, they had much more fans, but I don't know about that being a huge factor with this because I just don't really feel like the fan base is as lively, I guess, if that makes any sense.
see that.
There's not as many bandwagon fans of Seahawks, is what I'm saying.
Right, and everybody liked the Seahawks back when it was Russell Wilson and Legion of Boom.
Of course. I'm going Browns in this one. After what I saw a little bit from that Niners-Browns game, I love their defense now. So,
their defense is arguably one of the best in the league.
And
so,
what travels best? Run game and defense, and the Browns have it. So, yeah, I like it.
I could most definitely see a Browns win here. This is a scary one. I chose a lot of games that I wanted to scare people with. You lead the way.
Next game. What should be another pretty good game. Bengals at 49ers. Now, the 49ers, they've lost 2 games in a row, something I don't think many people thought was going to happen, maybe at any point this season.
You know what it was?
What was it?
Is me saying, I don't think, I just
You
don't
did
see them
say
losing
that.
to
You
anyone.
did
And
say that.
honestly,
Roll the clip, me.
I don't, I go ahead, Jay Cruz. I don't know what happened. I actually have a curse on these people.
Yeah, roll the clip.
But from every game that I've watched from the 49ers this year, they are not only the best team in the league, but they are far and away the best team in the league.
Okay, it's rolling.
It's rolling.
So, the 49ers have lost 2 games in a row after Cole Daly said that. Once to the Browns, that we mentioned earlier, and then last week to the Vikings.
That one didn't make any sense.
Of all teams without Justin Jefferson. So maybe the Vikings have turned a corner, but the 49ers have – the injury bug has bit them a little bit. Haven't had Deebo Samuel. didn't have him last week against the Vikings. The Bengals, I believe, are coming off a bye, correct? I don't think they played
Yes.
I believe they're coming off a bye. Right. That's probably why I didn't hear about them, because they were on a bye, of course. Bengals at Niners. Joey Bernard. Man dressed like a pumpkin. Who are you picking?
So I have an interesting development that I don't think you two know about yet because it just happened between our break. Because Brock Purdy has been declared out of the game. Sam Darnold is scheduled to start. I don't know if that changes your picks at all. It doesn't for me. I'm picking the Niners because I trust their defense. Sam Darnold, I feel like even Sam Darnold can excel in a Kyle Shanahan offense. I don't like Sam Darnold.
I don't either.
But I think even he can excel with them. So give me the Niners. I just think they're a much better team than the Bengals this year.
I want to hear Cole Daly's opinion. Can you look up the updated point spread on this game then?
I will.
Because I don't know why. I figured this might be under a field goal now.
Most certainly is. My guess would be like 2.5.
Does this change anything for you, Cole? Or are you?
This changes nothing. I think that I agree with him. I think Sam Darnold will excel in the Kyle Shanahan offense, and I even would not be surprised. Now that I say this, they're going to lose by 20.
Right.
But legitimately, I thought there was a real chance that Sam Darnold got the starting job before the season.
Wow.
Because Sam Darnold just seems like if Sam Darnold started his career with Kyle Shanahan, it has to be different than what it was with Adam Gase, right?
Yeah.
Like Sam Darnold is clearly a very, very naturally talented guy, and I would not be surprised if there started being talks of Sam Darnold new starter for the 49ers.
No, I could see it.
Right? So I'm going to stick with the Niners. I feel like quarterback is the position that I'm least concerned about with the Kyle Shanahan team.
Right.
Aside from when they had Christian McCaffrey starting at quarterback.
Right.
I mean, they could throw Jay Cruz out there, and I most of the time I pick him.
Is that an insult to Jay Cruz?
It's not.
No,
I think he's
the 49ers, if I was the quarterback for 17 games, we'd win at least one.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
We'd go at least 1-16.
I believe that.
So I have no idea if this is updated yet, to be honest, because this just happened like 30 minutes ago.
Right.
But the spread is minus 5.5 for the Niners. So that's what it is at the moment.
If that's what it is after the Sam Darnold or the Brock Purdy injury news, I will also agree with you guys. We're going to go all three Niners here. There again, we mentioned this with a lot of teams this week. They're just due for a get-right game. Mm-hmm. They need this one, too. Yeah. Now, the Bengals are a team that is in need of stacking some wins up here in the middle of the season. So this is a huge game for both of these teams.
Sure is.
For the rest of their season, if they want to accomplish their goals, they both need this. So this is definitely going to be one that I tune into on Sunday afternoon. But now we go to Sunday night, a game that, again, I don't know why it's on here, but Chicago Bears are playing the Los Angeles Chargers in a game that prior to Justin Fields getting hurt against the Vikings and the Bears ending up losing that game, I was looking really forward to this game. Now I don't even know if I want to watch it. Quick state of the team for the Bears, I guess. We destroyed the Raiders somehow in some way. Now, Brian Hoyer was starting, and he's not the backup he used to be, but we were using our backup too, a D2 player named Tyson Bagent, who has become an internet darling, similar to Brock Purdy from last year. Ugh. I'm not comparing the two. I don't think he might be our backup for a long time, but he's definitely not going to be our starter at any point, long term at least. But I like the fight he showed. Apparently him and his dad are like CrossFit trainers.
Oh, and isn't his dad like a
arm
wrestler? Yeah.
Arm wrestling world champ. So
we love that.
It takes that kind of guy, I guess, to help out the Bears. And I do have to give a shout out to the defense and Matt Eberflus. He's put together a few good games now that he's been calling the plays for the defense. I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on. Sorry.
What is going on? Hold up.
Sorry.
I've talked myself into it.
Hold up.
I've talked myself into it. I've been listening to a word Jay Cruz has been saying.
He hasn't been listening. I'm not even going to cut this out. I'll leave it in there.
Good.
The Bears.
You'll understand why in a second.
The defense has been playing so well. Jalen Johnson has looked like a Pro Bowl corner last couple of weeks. I'm very impressed with how they've turned the defense around. Very impressed with Matt Eberflus. I feel like we should just keep him as a DC and just get a new head coach at this point. I'm not picking the Bears to win this game. I'll just say that right now. There is absolutely no way the Chicago Bears win this game in any reality. I know the Chargers suck, but there's just no way. This is just not going to happen. It can't happen, right?
Right.
I have a feeling in my head, based on what you guys have been talking about, that you both are going to spite pick the Bears to beat the Chargers.
I don't know. Joey,
I'm
You guys,
so-
you guys have been crafting up something devious over here.
I think we both are like such on the weather about
How
who
can
we're
you
picking.
be on the? I can't.
Okay, I'm just gonna explain it here. My original pick was the Bears because I was like exactly like you said. Their defense has been playing so great lately, and then I realized that they're playing prime time and they're on the road. And not that LA is a huge home field advantage, but I think I just trust the Chargers' offense a bit more. But I don't know. The Chargers' defense sucks.
They stink, but we have Tyson.
Their
Bagent
run
as our
defense
quarterback.
specifically sucks.
Well,
And
we
the
don't have
Bears,
running backs.
Deontay Foreman did pretty decent last week.
He scored touchdowns. He didn't light the world on fire.
He did great on fantasy.
Right, because he scored 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But he was like 18 for 62 running the ball, which is fine, but it's nothing like Pro Bowl style.
I'm picking the Bears. I have to do it.
That's unbelievable.
What, you flipped again?
I'm
He
doing
started
it.
on the
I'm
Bears,
picking the Bears
then flipped to
because
the Chargers. Now he's back on the Bears.
I think that the Bears' run game is just going to go off because the Chargers' run defense is awful.
I hope we get Roshan back. He's been out for a few weeks, and he hasn't really. When Khalil Herbert got hurt, I was like, okay, this is Roshan Johnson's time. But then he had the concussion, and so Deontay Foreman's taken over the last couple of games. I mean, I hope you're right. I think that would be cool. I think it'd be cool if we beat the Chargers, and then Justin comes back maybe the week after when we play the Saints. And
Can I get your analysis on Tyson Bagent? Like, is he a good
I
passer?
think one thing that he definitely does better than Justin is just knowing what he wants to do before the ball's even snapped. And sometimes that can hurt you as an NFL quarterback, and sometimes it can be in your favor. He never really threw the ball down the field at all. I think his longest throw was like 14 yards. But given the Bears' game plan, Luke Getsy drew up a pretty good game. The Raiders' defense is also terrible, despite the fact that they've looked like a Pro Bowl defense against some other teams like the Packers. But, I mean, he just didn't make mistakes. That's really all you got to do as a quarterback. Tyson Bagent didn't do that, and I got to give him credit for that. Yeah,
I want to hear from Cole Daly.
I do too.
So I had originally picked the Chargers, but I have flipped, folks. I have flipped to the Bears of Chicago.
This is hilarious.
I wasn't listening to a word J. Crew said. In my mind, I'm going, it's lining up. It's lining up for this team.
Boys.
It's lining up for this team. Like, a lot of the stuff that Joey mentioned, I mean, this is easily, Kellen Moore's offense is a stinker for the Chargers. And the Bears' defense has been playing so well. It's like a puzzle piece where the Bears just perfectly, like, click with their weaknesses. Like, the Bears' strengths affect all of the Chargers' weaknesses. And so that's why I'm leaning heavy on the Bears. I am fully confident in my pick. And that's why I'm going to go with Bears Nation.
Should I switch?
Switch.
It's hilarious that the Bears fan is picking against the Bears.
Switch.
Are you switching right now?
No, I'm not switching. The Chargers are gonna
You were just about to
destroy
do
the
it.
Bears. The Chargers are going to destroy the Bears by like 30. I hope we win, obviously, but guys, come on. There's a reason why I'm 11-1 in my last 12. It's because I don't go with my heart. I go with my head. As much as I want the Bears to win, I'm not going to do that. Okay? Thank you guys for doing that, though. It means a lot to me that you guys actually believe in the Bears.
If anybody cares, going back to the Niners game, the odds are -3.5.
Okay. I still like Niners.
Yeah,
I still like Niners.
I still like Niners.
I was second on it.
All right, so that's our NFL segment. Browns Seahawks. Looks like me and Cole are on the Seahawks. Joey's on the Browns. We're all on the Niners, even though Brock Purdy's out. And for whatever godforsaken reason,
We're all on the Bears.
These two are on the Bears, and I am on the Chargers. If the Bears win, I will wear my Bears jersey on the pod next week. How about that?
Okay.
Right. There we go.
I feel like you should give us the old
Yes,
Bears
I will
jersey.
bring. I have 2 jerseys. I will
Bring
bring them
Bears
both for
jerseys
you,
for
and you will both. Wear
I'm
them.
not
because
wearing.
we're
I'm
riding.
not.
We're
No.
riding.
You will both wear them.
I'll wear both.
If the
I'll
Bears
wear
win.
I'm picking the Bears. I'm not saying they're gonna lose this game. That would make sense.
Okay,
if I was
then
picking
if the
against
Bears
them.
lose, you have to wear it.
There you go. You're gonna be confident in
No
your
way.
pick. You're gonna be confident in your
This
pick.
is
Joey?
not
Put your money where
win.
your mouth is.
Put your money
Fine.
where your mouth is.
I'll do it.
If the Bears win or if the Bears lose.
If the Bears lose, I will wear a Bears jersey.
So you'll wear it if the Bears win.
So
He'll wear it if the Bears lose.
I'm rooting for
Yes,
what is going on?
So
I'm
weird.
rooting. Whoa! I am rooting for a Bears win, so I don't have to wear a Bears jersey as a Packers fan.
Okay. I guess that kind of makes sense. Either way, folks, someone's wearing a
Someone's
Bears
wearing a
jersey
Bears
next
jersey.
week.
It's not going to be me.
Oh man.
All right. Enough the NFL talk.
Yeah, let's move on.
Joey, what did you learn this past week in the world of sports, buddy?
Peaking at the right time before the playoffs matters most. And we talked about this last week when you were gone, Cole, but the playoffs in any sport, the biggest thing with that is peaking late in the season. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to get it done. We saw that with the Diamondbacks. They peaked at the right time. Wild card round against the Brewers. That game against the Phillies in Game 7 was a really, really big turning point for them, and them getting to the World Series is huge. And then the Rangers, of course. Jordan's Rangers turned it around when all seemed lost. All hope was gone after that Max Scherzer start in Game 3, but they turned it around in Game 7. So being able to peak late in the season, late in games, late in the playoffs matters.
I'm gonna stay on the baseball topic. Have you guys heard about this Brewers? It's not really a curse, and if anything, it's more of a blessing. You guys have heard about this Brewers thing, where every single time that the team that has beat the Brewers, leading all the way back to 1980, they make it to the World Series. And the Diamondbacks, who just barely snuck in behind the Cubs in the wild card, end up making the World Series. I'm personally disappointed by it. I know I can't talk about it because I was not featured on your guys' baseball segment. I was really rooting for the Phillies. But I mean, hey, it's fun to have them in there. And I like that this very weird stat leading all the way back to 1980 is still true. I think that part of it's fun. But
yeah,
go Rangers. And what did you learn, Jake?
Yeah, let's just go all three baseball this week, shall we? I mean,
I love it.
It's the World Series,
Right.
right? What better time to do so? I think one thing that I think Cubs fans in particular have been guilty of is saying things like, well, you can't expect our team to spend a ton of money on free agents. Because 2 years ago, when the Phillies and Rangers were spending a ton of money on free agents, people were like, you don't want to do that. Look at the Phillies and Rangers, and look how much they sucked in 2021. Well, 2022, the Phillies made the World Series. In 2023, both of these teams were either one game away from the World Series or one made the World Series, and hopefully, probably, kind of, will win the World Series. And so I think that what I learned this week is that if you're a fan of a team, you should always be rooting for your team to spend the money that they have. Because at the end of the day, you don't win the World Series just because you have the most homegrown players. I mean, the Dodgers have proven that too. You don't win the World Series just because you have the most likable players on your team. Like, the Astros have proven that. Like, it's just, you win when your organization tries. You win when your organization cares. I mean, we're all fans of teams that it feels like the organization doesn't care as much as they should, or they're very poorly run, right?
That's right.
And so
I'm an owner of my team.
Are you actually an owner?
I actually am.
That's so sad.
Can you own your team?
No, I don't want to own my team. So you're saying you're responsible for this?
Let's go
I'm
back
not
to what we learned.
Anyway.
Let's go back to what we learned.
Yes. Anyway, in the documentary Last Dance with Michael Jordan, Jerry Krause had a famous saying. It's players don't win championships, organizations do. Mm-hmm. And what he meant by that was not what I'm trying to say. Is that your organization does have to care though. You can't have an organization that doesn't care about winning because you're just not gonna do it. It just won't happen.
Well,
And the Diamondbacks, weirdly, are kind of a reverse of this because they are mostly homegrown talent. I think they have like the 9th lowest payroll. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I mean, I guess you could just say it's their development. But their organization has built up an incredible roster of players, and that's how they got there. And same for the Rangers. They went out and spent a lot of money and supplemented that with a bunch of homegrown talent. So, yeah, your organization has to care.
alrighty, folks. And on that note, this has been episode 9 of the Inside Sport Podcast. This is Cole, Joey, and Jordan. Thank you so much for joining us. If you would not mind, please, watching us on YouTube, and please hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe, and the bell notification. Then if you're listening to this on Spotify, please be sure to like this episode and give us a follow. Thank you so much for watching. The DE is capitalized, in case you were curious.